What's the most used man-made material on Earth? I'll give you the answer. Concrete. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. Have you ever stopped to think about the sidewalks, driveways, bridges, or the buildings around you? They're all made from concrete. So why don't we discuss it more? In each episode of Concrete Logic, we'll explore a unique concrete-related topic with the help of industry professionals shaping the trade's future. We'll talk with suppliers, contractors, architects, engineers, specialists, and even proponents of competing materials. We'll get their views on concrete and their visions for its future. So get ready to mix things up with Concrete Logic, where we turn the spotlight on the material that's everywhere but often overlooked. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. And now, here's your host, Seth and Dr.
Welcome to another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast, and today I have a surprise guest. Just kidding. Dr. Belkowitz is back in the house. I asked him, so we've talked about PLC or Type 1L cement a lot on the podcast. It's a favorite subject, and I was curious about if we could test the cement that the producers are getting, ready-mix producers are getting, to ensure what they're ordering is what they're getting. So he's got an answer for us today. So we're gonna talk about that. But first, as always, just a reminder to support the podcast. There are 3 things you can do for me. If you get something out of the discussion today, which, I mean, if you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time and listen to Dr. Jon Belkowitz's, I don't know, you had 9 or 10 episodes in now.
Right.
Any of them, you're going to learn something today. So don't be selfish. Share the podcast with someone that is not currently listening, someone in the concrete industry, or even someone that's maybe interested in joining us in the industry. Second thing is if you go to concretelogicpodcast.com, there are 2 ways to get a hold of me. One, there's a link at the top of the page. It says contact. Click on that. You can shoot me an email. And we're looking for topic or guest suggestions. So I've had people do that in the last week, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Or if you're like me, I'm not into writing as much as I am talking. Obviously, I'm a host of a podcast. So if you'd like to leave voicemails, you can click on the microphone in the bottom right-hand corner of the homepage. And it's, like I said, it records your voice, so you can talk right through your computer. And again, give me a suggestion on a topic or a guest, or just want to say, give me some feedback or anything. So it's always good to hear from who's listening to the show. Appreciate that. And then the last way is donations. So if you want to donate to the show, click on the donate button that's in the upper right-hand corner of the homepage. Again, concretelogicpodcast.com, and you can give any amount. Any amount is appreciated. So don't think it's got to be some huge amount. But if you want to give a huge amount, that's great as well. So with that, Dr. Jon.
Okay, I got 4 things. Donate.
Okay.
Stop being cheap. Right? Especially, like, I was talking to Dan this morning, and I interrupted him as he was listening to the Concrete Maturity podcast.
I think it's funny that you said, speaking of cheap, and then you went to Dan McCoy. All right. Sorry.
Thank you for pointing that out. Sorry. Not sorry, Dan. Dan was, I mean, the amount of information he got just from that portion of the maturity podcast that we did was wild. The other thing is, I think you should have on the following people: Joe Shetterly or Mike Nelson. One is from E5, the other one is from Indiana DOT. And about the work with liquid fly ash and the 275 bridges that they've done, and I might be misquoting numbers, and I apologize, that they've done without fly ash, and they're using E5 nanosilica in lieu of fly ash.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, and I keep saying this, I sound like a broken record, and I apologize. Somebody else out there in the audience needs to talk to Colin Lobo. You need to have Colin Lobo on as a guest.
He's already booked.
Really?
Yeah. He's
really,
booked.
really?
Really. He's booked.
I don't
Colin
think he
Lobo's
likes me.
booked. Tyler Lay's booked.
Yeah,
And
Tyler
then-
Lay, you told me about. No,
Oh, yeah,
Tyler was
Tyler
inedible.
Lay. Yeah.
Tyler Lay should be a quarterly guest, because if anybody is at the tip of the spear and can feel the heartbeat of the industry within the academic, looking at the political side of the industry and looking at the practical side, the P squared or the PP.
I don't like that.
Tyler Lay is the guy that I think you should be or should have a standing reservation once a quarter.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway,
He's
person.
he's on the annual basis right now, so we got some work to do there. So he's got to go through like a booking agent now to get to Tyler Lay.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. God bless. He's
his
time
class.
is that valuable. Well, his time is that valuable. Colin Lobo, I would say, is the same thing. Can I give you a list of questions to ask Colin Lobo?
Yes, please email them to me so we can get into what we're talking about today.
Wicked. The last person who is absolutely brilliant, Larry Sutter.
I gotta look. I don't. We've been exchanging emails back and forth. I think he's gonna follow up with me this fall. So he's another tough guy. He's talk. I guess he does a lot of talks and stuff, right?
It's not that he just does that. He also volunteers like a lot of his time. You want to talk about somebody who gives back to the industry? Like, Larry should have told me to go F off years ago and never pick up a phone call from me ever again.
Uh-huh.
Like, he and I have gotten to so many yelling matches, and every single one of them, he's teaching me something. Like, I'm that type of student. Like, I don't like, oh, that's nice. That's a really good idea. I'm like, nah, that doesn't make sense. Are you sure? You know what you're doing? Like, he's brilliant. He's a great mentor, and he's helping change the industry. I don't agree with everything he does all the time, but fuck, he is C618. ASTM C618 is what he's in charge of, and I think that is something great to talk to him about, and that is affecting Class F, Class C, Class N ashes, or pozzolanic material, whatever you want to call it, whatever they're called. You know, coal combustion and naturally mined materials.
Uh-huh.
He's the king of everything. And Mano Shevitz is doing a good job. And he's our advisor for the colloidal silica WK ASTM.
Gotcha. What's ASTM you mentioned for him? I'm sorry, I didn't write it.
I'm sorry. I speak so quickly. C618. It's the coffee.
Okay.
It's from Colombia.
Gotcha. Nice. Like a good Colombian coffee. All right. So the reason why I reached out to Dr. Jon about this is I had someone reach out to me through the podcast, through the website, and what was going on was this company was buying cement, and they thought they were buying type 1-2 cement, and there was type 1L cement in the bags, and he found that out the hard way. So I was curious.
Ooh, no pun intended.
Oh,
huh?
That was a good one. Man, the dad jokes are thick today.
3 times today.
So I was curious if there was a way for someone that is in that situation, that is getting bagged cement or cement that's thrown right into a silo, right? The truck pulls up and goes right into the silo. How can you test the cement that you're receiving and make sure you're getting what you're ordering?
Okay. Is it my turn?
Yes, go.
Can we look up the definition of the type 1L cement or just ASTM C595 real quick?
Sure.
You know, all of us keep saying this incorrectly. We're calling it like a type 1L cement, or we're calling it a limestone cement. And that's not the correct term. This is a blended hydraulic cement.
Yeah, I just
right?
read that in a spec yesterday.
And when you get the mill cert, and we just hired CTL Skokie to do a mill cert for us. God bless them. They're a wonderful company too. That's another, I can't remember his name, but that's another company you should talk to, or a representative of some CTL group. They do a lot of testing all over the US for concrete as well as the raw materials.
Mm-hmm.
And to talk to them about the changes, oh gosh. But anyway, the assumption is that the material that we're getting is being diluted by a certain amount of limestone, and that's causing issues. And that is the incorrect interpretation of the standard. Now, I didn't write this standard, and I am writing a standard. I know that colloidal silica for use in concrete standard, like I know my dissertation. I know it back and forth, upside down, where I made the mistakes, what has to be fixed, and what are gems. So I do not want to speak as if I wrote this standard. I want to speak as if I read this standard, and as if I'm getting the mill reports from the certified testing companies, third party, and what that information is. And I can tell you what we are getting is little to no information. The fact that they're telling us that there's a certain amount of calcium carbonate in there does not tell us what else is in the concrete, or the cement.
Yep.
And how it affects the concrete, I apologize, I sometimes jump sentences, is very important. Now, the vetting process I'm going to discuss, I wrote an abstract for. And I really want you to push back on me. Do you mind if I read this abstract, Seth?
Go for it.
The concrete industry is facing a major challenge with conversion from AST1C 150 prescribed cements, to where they told you the physical and chemical characteristics, to the ASTM-C 595 blended cements, which for most happened overnight. This transformation has brought unexpected consequences for producers, contractors, distributors in a variety of construction markets. And says that's what you were alluding to when you were talking about, this project. If not properly managed, it can lead to plastic shrinkage cracks, thermal cracks, weak surfaces, loss in compressive strength, or something as even as simple as change in color of the concrete. All going squarely against the quality standards consumers have come to expect in their building and manufacturing processes. During our coffee talk, we're going to dive into what's really going on with the Type 1L conversion, so that engineers, contractors, and concrete producers can confidently respond to changes in the industry landscape more effectively. Now, what's your pushback immediately?
I mean, nothing jumped out at me. I think that's a fair assessment. I think the biggest thing there is understanding that the Type 1L doesn't fit under the C150, and you have to refer to the C595 because of that. That was the point that this person that reached out to me about the bag cement. What the Type 1L does not qualify as an ASTM C150 cement. I don't think this person knows about the C595. Well, maybe they do, but yeah.
When you buy a C150 cement, which is a prescriptive base cement, or it's, what's the title? It's not what the title is, John. They hand you a mill report, and that mill report, you can ask for that, it's specification for Portland cement. And it's, 6 types of cement: type 1, type 2, the type 3, type 4, type 5, and the in-betweens. There was even talk of a type 6 at one time designed by Dick Burrows. But what they're giving you is a prescription. They're
Right.
telling you what's in the cement, so you have an idea of what's going on here. Or then they came up with an 1157 cement, which was a performance-based cement. And that's when they started introducing the limestones. And they didn't really have to tell you what was in the cement, but they just had to tell you what the performance was. Now it's the same thing, but they have to tell you less. It's tricalcium, dicalcium silicate, calcium carbonate, and the performance. And that's it. They don't got to tell you anything else. The strength activity index, nothing else. There's no chemistry involved. Now, that poses a lot of problems for people because, and man, O'Shevitz, I got to use Pareto's law in this part of the conversation. The reason why we give a shit about this is not because of the 80% of the workhorse that goes out there, right? 80% of the concrete that goes out there is residential concrete.
Yep.
It's low cement, low admixtures, a lot of water, a lot of rock and sand. It needs to hit 3,000 to 3,500 PSI in 7 to 28 days. That's not hard to do, even if you have to add a lot of cement, which folks are having to do right now. The problem comes from the 20% of the concrete mixes that go out the door that are the specialty concrete mixes that have anywhere between 3 and 6 chemical admixtures in there. And the reality is that 20%, the higher end mixes, cause 80% of our problems when it comes to producing and selling concrete. What's the problem? Looks like you're smelling something bad.
Just looking up the history of C595 versus C.
Don't stop. It's gonna break your heart. Like, how did we get here, dude? How did we get here?
I didn't realize it's been around so long.
Well, the 1157s have been around long, and the whole proponents, all these assholes, excuse my language, talking about the C595s, they refer to Colorado. Oh, Colorado's been using limestone-based cements for years. It's been on the docket since like 2011.
Well, I get
Colorado's.
They say that about Europe.
Colorado has had, just because you have something on the APL doesn't mean that people are using it. And I'm very thankful that I was making Colorado since 2005 up until now. So I know the Colorado industry. I know people who make and sell cement. There are 5 cement producers or 5 cements available in Colorado. It's one of the weirdest places in the world that you have so many fucking choices. Excuse my language. But the reality is, when that 1157 came out, nobody wanted it. People are like, wait. So you're diluting my cement and you want me to pay more for this? Like, I don't care about the environment. What did Rich Sachy tell us? There's 3 things that he sells on the job site. Not one of them is environmentally friendly and what's good for the world. The GWP. I sell speed, and I sell how fast can you get me off the job site, or how cheap you can make it, right? How fast, and how cheap can you make it? Right? That's what he sells. And Rich, I'm sorry if I screwed that up. Okay, so that was my abstract, and my proposal is this. My point was that concrete producers, I don't care your style, wet batch or central batch, dry batch, volumetric, precast, in bags that go into vertical mixers. If you're mixing and making cement composites, concrete to neat cement pastes, you're being affected by this. And you're selling product, you're being affected by this. And what I am saying, and this is where Dan pushed back, is we need to create a quality management system internally. If you're making concrete, you need to test out your materials. These blended cements, some of them have 3 to 6 admixtures in the cement. It has a water reducer. It has a calcium formate, a calcium chloride. It has a hydration stabilizer. It has a shrinkage compensating agent. It has a blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just so many bells and whistles, and shit, they're allowed air entraining agents. Now you add that to a concrete that has 3 to 6 chemicals, and you have, no pun intended, a recipe for a disaster. And again, oh, John, we don't need to do this for residential concrete. Maybe not. Maybe you don't. But for high-rise concrete, for concrete that needs to be pumped, For concrete that needs to be paved, shit, you need to do something. Because that stuff is expensive to freaking rip out and replace.
Yeah.
So, what I'm suggesting, and just hear me out before you start throwing shit at me, okay? I'm suggesting that people who make concrete start doing a vetting process. And that means every time they get cement in, and I feel like you're like reared up to throw something at me. Right? You're like in a pitching stance right now. It's kind of scary. Right? Hold on a second. Wait, you just texted me. I'm suggesting that we start including a quality control management system that includes testing the fresh and hardened properties of the cement in combination with the admixtures we intend to use in our concrete.
Yeah.
And that means work. That means setting up 8 mixes, and I don't need a long time. I'm not asking for 7 and 28 days. Oh, John, it's going to take a long time. You know, the process that I'm suggesting includes a mortar mixer, concrete testing machine, a VICAT apparatus, the temperature testing device, a flow table, some type of mini slump cone or from the flow table, a graduated flask for the mortar stick, sieves, ovens, and that thermostatically controlled box for your temperature versus time. And then I'll stop here for the overnight tests. And I really need 12 hours. I don't need overnight. I could do somewhere around 8 tests in a 24-hour period. And with that, I can get semi-adiabatic temperatures, strength activity index, mortar flow, foam index, number 16 sieve analysis, autogenous shrinkage, and I could do a cracking test too.
All within 24 hours. Okay.
Testing frequency, every time you get a mix or a new cement in, every time you get a new cement in, it needs to be all new cement from now on, needs to be blown into silos at night. And these people will be working in a conference room until a QC shack can be built. And you can buy a tiny home and convert that into a QC shack.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all the top 20, all of them will be tested to determine if they fit within a temperature versus time, strength, activity, cracking. All have to be indexed, right? And the yeah, I can go into how much all that'll cost, by the way, too, if you want that. But it's going to cost money. It means we have to hire people. What Dan pushed out is no way that's going to happen. I know you're going to too, because we're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars, like maybe 120,000 to set up a QC shack, train somebody, pay somebody, and set up this system.
These can't be the same people that are doing quality control now?
No, they got their own shit to do. Yeah, they got their own shit to do. We can't give them another task. That's not nice.
Okay.
If they want to apply for the job, God bless, but I need my people in the field.
Right, but there's some quality control folks that are already in the ready mix supplier team.
Yeah, so they can apply for the job, but you can't objectively base these people.
You're saying these are two separate groups, so you can't have... Yeah. I gotcha. All right.
They need to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And they need to communicate about what the hell is going on. I'll give you, for instance, right? Dan's like, that's bullshit. You can't do that in every mix. What, are you going to change the mix, John? You can't change the mixes. You need a whole new submittal. Yeah, I'm improvising Dan here, and I think I did a good job. Dan's argument is that this cannot be used to change the mixes on the fly. It's a broken system if that's what you're using it for. And it's not. It's not. And that's where I cut Dan off. Like, hey, man, you're understanding it the wrong way. I have a I have a mustache hair that's tickling my nose.
Uh,
This is used as a binary system, pass fail. We years ago created a mix called Cronolia Road Patch. Fucking amazing. David Neighbor, Mr. McCombs, and Mr. Subcheck and I created this mix. And it was the talk of the town, man. 2 hours of slump retention, and 2 hours later, you can open it up to traffic.
wow.
Fucking beautiful. It was beautiful. But it used, and it didn't crack. It had no plastic, no drying shrinkage cracks. It didn't die out at 28 days. Got like 11,000 at 28 days. Fucking amazing mix. And to do all that, it had 7 different admixtures in it. 7 different admixtures, John? Well, yeah, you're making it do amazing things. You need to mess with the chemistry.
Yeah.
And we knew, Kevin and I knew, Mr. Subject and I knew that if we did the temperature curves, there was a certain temperature time ratio that we had to get. There was a certain time that if we didn't reach the temperature, we knew we weren't going to make strength. It was called the Belso ratio, right? It was
Okay.
our quick way of checking.
Mhm.
And it's, you know, with maturity, not that I want to get into that discussion again, but you can associate maturity to compressive strength, flexural strength, shrinkage, setting time, whatever. You just have to create the indices.
Right.
Same
Yep.
thing here. So Kevin and I created these quick tests, and it all came from, there was a time that we were creating this mix. We were selling it throughout Colorado in the Western U.S. business unit. And all of a sudden, we had a bean counter who was our VP GM. And he decided one day that we were going to take the cement out of all the silos and replace it with another company's cement because he was saving $20 per ton. God bless him. It's a brilliant idea. Little did we know we were saving that much money on cement because they totally changed where the SO3 content came from. And while it didn't mess with the residential mixes, every single one of our job sites that had this Cronolia, which was 3 times the cost of a residential mix,
Uh-huh.
concrete fell asleep. Didn't set up in 4 hours. Didn't set up in 8 hours.
Oh,
Right? Took 24 hours for it to set up, and CDOT wants its money when you do that. It took them weeks. The cement company, doesn't matter who they are, it took them weeks to come back and say, hey, it was our fault. We were getting our gypsum from a different source. It changed up the SO3 content. We're a bunch of jerks. We're really sorry. The entire time, we thought it was our fault. The customer put it on us. They went to the competitor. We had to work to get them back. There was no accountability, responsibility. So
mhm.
what we had to do was create this method. That's why I have this method. That's why this mini slump cone looks like it's been used a lot, right? Same thing with this guy, but not this guy. I clean this mother effer out all the time. Look how beautiful that is.
What is that?
This is an air pressure meter for mortars.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you can't get air on mortars, John. Bullshit, you can't. From Humboldt. I got this half price because I bought it off the table at the show.
Oh, I
Let's-
remember you posting about
It's fucking amazing.
that. It's probably the only way Whitney let you buy that because it was half off.
So, you know, there are ways to do these tests in a quick period of time, and they're not from making them up. And gosh, I told this to Daniel this morning. I was like, buy the ASTM for concrete and cement and just look through it. You'll find that there are the most wacky tobacky tests you've ever. There's a test where you take a concrete cylinder. It's not tall enough. Concrete cylinder. It's not tall enough. And you put a flashlight behind it. And you compare it to other mixes to say how much that concrete is shrunk. And it's for specifically for high early strength concrete. And all you're doing is taking a cylinder and pointing a flashlight and measuring the change of the shadow. Like, there's so many amazing tests that are validated and they're at our disposal that can be used. There's an autogenous shrinkage test. It's a 24-hour test. And it specifically looks at the cement paste. And anybody can do it. Doesn't matter where. I used to do it on my mom and dad's dining room table.
Mm-hmm.
Got in a lot of trouble for doing that. Mom got pissed.
Imagine.
Harry, I can't. You talk to your son, Harry. I can't. He's got concrete samples on my dining room table. My mom still has plastic. You know how they used to do that back in the day?
Yeah.
She has that on her dining room table. So I've gone through 2, 4, 6, 8 tests that it's going to cost a company plus a new person $120,000 to do. What's your biggest pushback and why?
Well, people will be reluctant to do that since they haven't needed to do it so far, right? So why are we spending, well, you said 120
At a minimum.
at a minimum just to get it off the ground? That's not,
yeah. 15, 20,000 for the QC shack and some of the equipment. The person, was that 70 to 90,000, and then the time invested in training them.
Yeah.
So just figure 120,000,
And then the next, like you've already talked about, they don't think they have the time to do it, right? So
right.
But then the flip side would be, what are we avoiding?
So we had a good friend of ours who batched concrete for a living. This is when we're still in Colorado. We're a young company. It was about 2014, 2015. Called me up crying. And this guy doesn't cry. He's like tough as nails. He reminds me of Kojak. Who loves you, baby? He said, I can't get insurance. I said, what? He said, you can get insurance. He goes, I can, but it's too expensive. I go, well, what's the problem? He goes, well, we get sued every other week, or it was twice a week, whatever it was. He's like, they had no way of knowing if what was going out the door was cotton candy or concrete. And because of that, when concrete wouldn't make strength, it wasn't the 3,500 PSI, it was the 20% of the concrete, the higher performance stuff. Any one of them went bad, he was looking at $50,000 to $150,000 payout.
Ooh.
Oh, John, he has insurance. When you get sued that many times, the premium don't count no more. It don't work that way. Right? So I took him out for breakfast. He said, I need your help. So I thought about it, took him out for breakfast the next day, Rosie's Diner. I said, I'm investing in you. Breakfast is on me this morning. I said, bud, you got 2 or 3 more lawsuits and then you're going under. Right? You're relying on your contractor to do quality control for you. Every raw material and the concrete he made, he had to get technical, or he had to get the data sheets from his contractor. And that's how he did quality control. Now you're saying to yourself, that's bullshit. You can't do that. Well, yeah, that's why he almost lost his business. Right? It took us a year to set up a quality control system for him to the point where it paid for itself just by the amount of lawsuits he wasn't getting. In a year's time frame, he stopped getting lawsuits because of quality control issues. There's always lawsuits. There's always a contractor who's an asshole. But it went from 2 to 4 lawsuits a month to 1 to 2 lawsuits a year, which means a lot for a family-owned business.
Right.
Sometimes which are personally insured. Sorry. To check my tamping rods. 5 years later, he was able to sell the company for $40 million.
Wow.
Now, what are we trying to capture? Man, nobody minds sending out bad concrete. They just don't want to have to deal with the implications from sending bad concrete. And years ago, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, we had no problems before Type 1L. Concrete was just transportation. It's not true. We had problems. But there were problems that we could digest. They were problems that we could deal with. There were manifold of issues that we were dealing with day to day. Now what we've done is some of these jerks from universities who've been elevated in the ASTMs, you know who I'm talking about, right? They're the ones who are saying, why does it matter that you have to calculate water cement ratio? Why does it matter that we need to know what's in the cement? We are a performance-based industry. We make concrete perform a certain way based on the prescription of the materials. You take that prescription away, you hand us a hodgepodge. I got to do something to make sure. So I'm not going to convince anybody, right, to use any of these tests. And again, as Dan said, you can't use these tests to do on-the-fly mix design changes. But like we did with the Cronolia Road Patch, when the cement changed, and because we were using a Tom Cruise Cocktail and Dreams mix, we wouldn't send trucks out. Like, F you. We're not doing this job site. We're not placing concrete and then hoping and praying that it sets up. I'd rather lose the job site and let them go to the competitor. Like, I got to figure this shit out.
Right.
And you can't change the mix. You can change admixtures. Ready mix providers know what I'm talking about. Your percent change, Rich will tell you this. Yeah, there's things you could change on the admixture. You could throw extra admixture. You can't change the cement and the water content, sand and rock. Yeah, you can change the chemistry. And with these tests, yeah, you can make decisions. Once you have a lot of experience, you can make, with that 12-hour bandwidth, you can make decisions on admixtures if it's, I just got to push it back into the band just a little bit.
Right.
Right? But if you know there's a major swing, like it falls asleep, or it sets up like a bat out of hell where you won't be able to make it out of the plant with the truck.
Yeah.
And you can do 8 mixes in a 12-hour period, convince me why you shouldn't do it. What's the money? Well, people aren't smart enough. I don't have the time. You have time to get sued? You have time to rip out and replace concrete?
So right now they're testing it on the fly.
They're not.
Right?
No,
Yeah,
they're getting.
Sure they are.
Who's testing it on the fly?
The ready mix suppliers.
No, they're doing reactive testing. They're not doing any type of proactive testing.
No, I will give you that. It's not proactive. What you're talking about is proactive. It's reactive. It's deliver it to the site. Wait for the contractor to scream at you.
For what? Oh, add some water.
Adjust there. Adjust it. Yeah.
At that point, you're too late.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. So that would be the other pushback, right? We're already doing that, Dr. John.
No, you're not. You're not doing it. If you want to lie to yourself and tell yourself you're doing it, what? You're doing a temperature versus time chart. You're doing foam index. You're doing 24-hour strengths. You're doing a cracking test. You're doing autogenous strength test. Easy tests where you can get the materials, most of them from fucking Walmart or from Fisher Scientific, from Uncle Jeff and the Amazonians. You're not doing that. And they're easy tests where you really have zero excuse. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example.
Is there any of these ready mix producers that you work with that you know of that is doing something like this? Maybe not to the extent. Yes.
To the extent.
Shoot. Yeah.
Don't forget, I know Dr. Jon, but Dr. Jon used to be a freaking lab tech who worked at a ready mix plant that I started out backing trucks up.
Yeah. So you did it while you were there?
I did it while I was there. This is what we had to do. And I was the asshole. Whitney will tell you, our first date was in a concrete laboratory. I almost broke up with Whitney for stopping a stopwatch. I used to sleep in my office with a sleeping bag. I used to watch Antonio Banderas assassin movies because that's all freaking Kevin loved. And he had a remote DVD thing. And I would wake up and do time of sets, wake up and do breaks, download stuff to the ADIACAL system, which is temperature versus time. They don't make them anymore, but it's a styrofoam box with thermocouples and a data acquisition system. It costs $1,500, $1,200 to make.
So it can be done. You're not asking for something that can't be done.
It's again, the what did Dan say? Oh, you can't teach a fourth grader how to dunk on a 10-foot rim. No, but this is not the type of game we're talking about. Here we're talking about survival of companies.
Yeah.
And if you take 20 fourth graders, put them in the Amazon rainforest, 1% will survive because they learned how to adapt. I don't have to convince anybody. It's either they want to adapt and they want to make themselves stronger, or they're going to be weaker, they're going to fall apart, the company is going to go bankrupt from the lawsuits, and they'll have to change their name if they can. And that's just the name of the game.
Yeah. So you're avoiding disasters down the road, but also too, couldn't you be? It's your potential of saving some money. So
and
you
making
test it
money.
and making money because you're testing. You would test the cement, and then you could adjust your mix design based on the properties of the cement that you actually have on hand, right?
Yeah.
You
With
can
your admins, when you become good enough, this is not a one-time deal. This is somebody who is on your
yeah,
team. You know, even race car drivers do that.
yeah,
Like, well, John, we're not in the race car driving industry. Are we? Do we have the same specifications and limitations, the fuel needs, the can I in the middle of the didn't even say hi to Seth. Say hi to Seth.
Hi, Seth. I don't interrupt you.
You never interrupt me, baby. I love you. Yeah, any high performance industry that is reliant on, I mean, shit, cement is the most important part of the mix.
yeah.
Right? It's not the water that you add water to rock, nothing happens to your rock and sand. When you add the wrong amount of chemicals and water to your cement, shit goes downhill in a handbasket.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that saying. I'm not going to use that again.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't.
these tests, once you get enough of them and you set them up to review as a team, I remember McCombs, Kevin, and the batch operators and I would look at the data and be like, oh shit, look at that. No wonder why we had a fucking problem. Like they were seeing the trends out of the data that we were.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't take long for people to start noticing trends if you have a good quality control program on the raw material side and making decisions based off of it. Like, don't send out the trucks. Stop. We've seen this before, man.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I'm so glad we did this.
Yeah.
Whew. Let's spend the morning getting some Mexican food and coffee and figure out how to get. Yeah, you guys can send out all the residential mix you want to. Send it out. It won't affect it. But this high early strength shit.
Yeah.
Just that by itself is a Christmas contract. You imagine having 7 plants. They all have a specialty mix, and all of them are sending out 5 trucks that morning.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
Whew.
It's a lot of money.
In Hebrew, you say ze arbe kesef.
Okay.
And the response to that is ze amon kesef.
You lost me.
That just means, wow, it is a lot of money. So, you know, what would be nice, and I think, you know, a suggestion for the next type of podcast, you need to evolve the podcast. It can't just be inviting people to come and talk. It's like what good editors do for good magazines. Did you ever read, I think it was Concrete Producer, the editor was Bill Palmer?
I don't believe so. No.
It's a defunct magazine. I think they might have an online platform, but ever since Bill left, I don't like the new editor. I used to publish articles for Bill. He was the first person to ever give me the ability to publish in a magazine,
Mm-hmm.
And not a technical journal, which is a huge thing for a writer like me. Like he gave me my first like real publishing gig, and the next 15 or 20 I did. Bill was very, very good to me. Bill's biggest thing was he brought the part 1 and part 2 to the industry.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't know if you ever read Ken Hover's Why Is There Air in Concrete Part 1, Part 2, but the Part 1, Part 2 all came from Bill Palmer. I'm making a harsh claim that anybody who produces concrete can't rely on the cement producers to give them the information that they need to make, forget quality concrete, let's say subpar concrete that doesn't get you a lawsuit, that they have to take it upon themselves. It would be nice if there was a part 2 where we can have a ready mix producer on board with me and you, where you're the construction guy, I'm the Dr. John guy, they're the producer, and they say, screw you, man. There's no way I can afford. You want me to? What you made concrete? When was the last time you saw a ticket? You ever seen a research budget item in my invoice? No, because I can't do that. I can't afford it. Like, that's the first thing that you hear from the argument. We're not a lab, John. This is not a university, John. Okay, well, your budget is, how much were you sued last? Whatever your last lawsuit was, that's your new budget to create a QMS system.
Yeah.
I think a part two with this, with Rich, who would yell at me, oh yeah, you know, we make concrete, 1, 2, 3, but
Yeah.
you're playing Russian roulette, and you don't know if you have bullets with gunpowder or bullets with cotton candy in them.
Yeah.
It's not a good analogy. It's not a good analogy.
We know what you mean. Yeah, because that's their responsibility, right? And I think Rich would admit that. I think he has.
Well, and then a lot of the discussion, and I need your validation on this, or your vetting or verification, is with these, what you had said before, is the producer gets the cement, they make the concrete, problems happen, and then if they get anything from the cement company, it's because they have proved that the cement company was at fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not an easy or inexpensive process.
Yeah.
And that's the reactive process that you were talking about.
Yes.
Invest that money in a proactive process, which is
much cheaper, it sounds like.
And you said it, and I keep cutting you off, and I'm so sorry. Whitney keeps telling, let's talk. You're going to make money.
Yeah.
How are you going to make money, Seth?
I think if you know what you're putting in, the properties of that cement that you're using, to me, my little bit of concrete chemistry knowledge would tell me that you would be able to make adjustments to what you think you have that could be less expensive, but also, like I said, you would make money avoiding potential issues down the road. So, and I would think, to me, how much you can't put a value on less stress, because if, like you said, you're sending out concrete and you're rolling the dice that you think you did it, you think you got it right, but
you know, it's the simple things that I think producers have forgotten about. Like, my favorite lesson I ever learned from Mr. McCombs. You want to start saving a carbon footprint on your concrete? Have your salespeople call up and just make sure the formwork is ready to go.
Yep.
You just saved a few trucks right there, just from that day. Right? How many trucks have gotten there and the formwork is not ready to go? And we keep the concrete. Just don't worry, it'll be fine. Right?
Yeah.
Doing this test. Look at this. Look at this test. Look at this test. They're pretty. Look how pretty these are. And look at this test. Come on, dude. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, all these tests are fun to do. And I can get a test made, like batched up and tested in 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Now I got to come back and look at the data. Okay, that takes a little while. I got to break things. But Seth, you were supposed to disagree with me the entire time. You're not supposed to say yes. You're supposed to push back.
I did push back.
You did?
But I'm not going to do as good as, say Rich would, because he's in it. So it makes... Rich has a lot bigger budget, and I think Rich is already doing something like this. Uh-huh.
It would be another version of tests. I think we need to get somebody on, like Steve Crawford from Speedway, where Steve is dealing with 7 plants. Right? He's the quality control manager.
Yeah, I know some quality control guys that I think we'll put this out there and see what they say, and then I get somebody that hasn't been on the podcast yet to maybe punch you in the mouth a couple times.
If you want to do that without me, I can I can expect them to push back, but my father says it best. Look at the alternative. Like, you've already been doing it the other way, and it sucks. You said the stress. Imagine having a lot more confidence. Forget not having the stress. Go the flip side of it. Not just making money, but just like, hey, we're just making concrete now. We're dealing with the problems we used to, but it's easier to make concrete.
Yeah. That's good. I think that's good. Good way to end today's show, Dr. Jon.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it once again. So folks, like I said, please share this, and we'll get somebody on here to give us the counter argument. And folks, until next time.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh,
hold on
what?
a second.
Yep.
We're writing an article on this that we'll publish, and we're starting to give talks on this.
Oh, okay, cool.
So if you want, and you don't have to hire us, you do have to pay for my sleeping arrangements and getting out there, but I can even do it virtual, but we're giving this for free. So if you want to do this in an association chapter, if you want to do it for your company, we don't charge for this presentation, especially if you do it virtually. It's a 1 hour presentation, 45 minutes to 30-minute talk, and the rest of it is Q&A. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, y'all.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll put the link in Intelligent Concrete, right? That's what it's through. Yes.
Yeah, I'll give you a link for the article when it's done.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Thank you again. And folks, until next time, let's keep it concrete.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. If you got value from the show, here's how you can provide value back to support the show. Visit concretelogicpodcast.com and click the donate button to send value back. All dollar amounts are truly appreciated. And now, to close out the show, here's Mike Dunton.
That alarm always sings couple hours before the sun comes up. Open up the side, put some diesel in the lights, and wait till the trucks roll up. Yeah, this ain't how most folks live their lives, dripping in sweat, working overtime. But while they're tying their ties for their 9 to 5s, we're out here changing these skylines with wood, iron, and mud. We work hard for $1, give thanks to the Lord above. Never make a man do something you can't prove. Hard work calls for a drink or two. Expect more, it's written in our blood. With wood, iron, and mud. From the swamps to the city, from the Lone Star heat to the woods of the Georgia pine. Good old boys and girls who ain't afraid of getting dirty for a clean time. And if you want to see the fire in a grown man's eyes beneath the hot summer sun, find the wild-eyed boys clocking days and nights, working hard to get